It is 12:30 Friday, March 28th. Duke just got it done against Arizona. Joe, I texted you with around 13 minutes to go. Duke was up 19 points with about 13 minutes to go on Arizona. I texted you. I'm like, all right, I've seen enough. I'm headed in. Funny thing happened on my way to the studio. Duke got in some foul trouble. The game bogged down. In the meantime, Arizona made it an incredible run to make this a tight game, get it within single digits. It stayed that way until the end. And Duke has not lost a game since February 8th. That was the Clemson game. They've won every game now but two by 8 points or more. The first game was the Carolina game in the ACC tournament. We know how that one ended in dramatic fashion with a lane violation. And then now this one, 100-93 was the final in this one. Look, we've talked about Duke being tested. We've talked about whether or not the ACC did Duke any favors by a lot of those blowouts. As I mentioned, only one of those games along the way, the Carolina game in the ACC tournament, was relatively close. But Duke is a different team that we saw at the beginning of the season. Duke is a deep team, even with Malik Brown being activated. He didn't play really much anything. And they got into foul trouble. Was it Gongba? I think he was the only one who fouled out, but a lot of other guys were creeping up to it. So this is once again an illustration of this Duke team just being deep, incredibly talented, and whatever you thought about them in the regular season, they're putting the money on the table right now in the postseason, and they're getting this thing done, man.
One of the great axioms of newspaper writing is tell the story, retell the story, then tell it again like no one's read the story before. Because you can't act like everyone knows everything you've written. Mm-hmm. Okay? So I'm watching this game tonight, and the number one thing I'm thinking about is what did we expect Duke could be this year before they ever played a game? What were the parts? How did it have to work? And you think about Cooper Flagg, 36, 7, 3 blocks tonight. I mean, my gosh, could you ask for much more from the number 1 overall pick in the NBA draft? Could you ask for much more from the college basketball player of the year? Obviously not. But you've seen Duke teams before have the number 1 overall pick. Cough, cough, Paolo Banchero. And sometimes he would do a lot. Sometimes he'd have to play out of position. That was always the beauty of the construction of this Duke team. It's 89-83 at the end of this game. Caleb Love gets a switch on a big. Gets a switch on a big. Where have we seen that before? Let me think. There was no dot here.
No.
There was no dot here. Malwatch gets the switch. He gets the closeout. And I actually thought that was the end of the game for Arizona. Caleb Love was spectacular in this basketball game. There's no doubt. Tommy Lloyd is a hell of a basketball coach. 35 points for Love. But going back, Banchero sometimes had to play the 5 and defend the 5. Flagg has never had to do that. Never. And I think the construction of this team, Malwatch in the middle, a legit 7-footer, a legit 5, allows Flagg to play his game. And now, Joe, you go back to that other piece here. And it's not Knipple, actually, even with his 20 points tonight. Steon James, a transfer from Tulane, is a guy who scored 14 points a game last year. Could have gone somewhere else. Could have been a shot hunter. Averaged 20 points a game somewhere else this year. Heck, could have done anything he wanted to really this year. Instead, he goes to Duke and gives them a physical presence on the perimeter, gives them a steadying presence on the perimeter. 4 assists tonight, no turn. They did have the 3 turnovers, but 16 points, 4 dimes in this game. He looked a lot like Keyshawn Johnson, the Arizona guard last year who went into Cameron and was really the best player on the floor, as opposed to Caleb Love, who got all the attention in that game. So you have that veteran ad in James, you have the star in Flagg, and you have that five, just a real difference maker in Malwatch. The way that the way that John Shire has put all those pieces together, learned from last year's mistakes of just simply trying to win around freshmen instead of supplementing the roster with transfers like the James.
Mm-hmm.
It's really something else to see how Duke has pulled it off. And here they are back in the Final Eight 1 year later. Carolina's home. State never got to Charlotte. They're in the Final Eight with a chance to close this thing out. Tonight's the first time I looked at the rest of the bracket and said, whew, the work boots will have to be put on here. The work boots will have to be put on for sure. But tip of the hat to Duke, because you start a year thinking one thing, and Joe, you can start many a year thinking one thing, and it does not turn out to be that one thing.
No.
But John Shire has really done something here, and Flagg himself has done something here too, because he's gotten a lot better as the year has gone along. It's true. Like you go back to he blocked Anthony Davis's shot. He's a prodigy. Blah 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 blah. Like, stop. Okay.
Well,
this was a complete effort. This was a complete effort.
We do this all the time. We are prisoners of the moment. We've seen it in the NCAA tournament, right down to the overall conversation around the NCAA tournament, where you got Stephen A. Smith saying, what? No Cinderellas in the Sweet 16? Well, this is going to be the death of March Madness. I mean, we got 1 year out of this, right? And we did this with Duke. I mean, I say we, it's a collective thing. I didn't.
Yeah.
I didn't. We didn't. But generally, you go back and you go back to those games, those early games against Kentucky and all that kind of stuff, and they came up short. I mean, it is what it is, but we said it then, and it's true now. Cooper Flagg is speed running 4 years of college in one season. And if you follow that, which is what I said at the beginning of the year with Cooper Flagg, he's speed running an entire 4-year college career in one season. That's what we expect out of these guys now. It doesn't always go the way you think it's going to go. As you mentioned, it has for Cooper Flagg. The player that he was at the beginning of the year and the player that he is now, he's clearly improved. And I know a lot of Duke fans who have been listening to us throughout the season. We got Martin. Those are Josh McRoberts' numbers tonight, Gilio.
Maybe not the scoring. a lot of points, man.
From SB,
a lot of points.
Cooper Flagg with another McRoberts-esque performance tonight, right? I think it goes beyond hitting some threes, the buzzer beater at half where he launched that thing from the freaking March Madness logo. It was some of the no looks there early on when Duke could not miss, right? In the second half, were they 9-9, 10-10, dominating with points in the paint and things like that. That's why I thought the game was freaking over at that point, because Duke just looked like it was going to cruise. You and I had dinner tonight, and before we were walking back to our cars, I think you had said something along the lines of like, yeah, after that Baylor game, this Arizona game, they're going to sweat a little bit. And I think what I said was, yeah, they'll sweat for 30 minutes. And then like somebody's going to step up. This gets to another larger point about Duke. Con Knippel hasn't had it yet. Well, he's still looking for it. I mean, he had a nice game today, but he's still looking for it. Tyrese Proctor had his moment in this NCAA tournament. That happened in the first 2 rounds. Cooper Flagg gets his moment in the Sweet 16. And who's to say he won't have more in the Elite Eight against Alabama, which we'll talk about in a little bit, and maybe in the Final Four, maybe in the championship. But the reason why I thought it was kind of was whose turn is it? That's kind of been Duke's MO, and that gets back to the roster construction. That's what allows Tyrese Proctor to have massive games like he did in the first 2 rounds, in the first 2 games, and Cooper Flagg to eventually get his in this game coming off that ankle injury. Did he look a little winded down the stretch? Yeah, man. But also the game got into a weird slog. It got super, super physical. I didn't like the way they, I didn't like the way they called that game. I also didn't like the fact that on one hand, they go to the monitor for a hook and hold. Well, that's a flagrant. And then they go to the monitor again for another hook and hold. Not a flagrant. I mean, it was all sorts of all over the place, but you got to overcome that. If you're Duke, any team in the NCAA tournament, you got to overcome that. So this is where you give credit to John Shire, who seems to have locked it in and understood what he needs to do around a roster, knowing what he has in Cooper Flagg and making sure he does not mess this up. It has paid off so far. We'll see what happens against Alabama. I'm guessing in the most traditional sense, Alabama used all their threes in their win against BYU, that they're going to have a complete just regression to the mean. You like to tell me that SEC teams can't shoot. Well, Alabama certainly shot in this BYU game. So look, man, I'm just overall impressed with how Duke has gotten better as the season's gone on. That's all you can ask, and that's why it's fair to wonder out loud in those early moments in November, in December, in those non-conference games of them coming up short. But all along, one of the things that I said, one of the things that you said, John Shire was putting Cooper Flagg in those positions to see how he was going to learn, how you're going to develop from that. He's also been using the depth all year. He's used some funky lineups throughout the season when necessary. And that's what gets you through foul trouble, because you've got that depth and thrown out some funky lineups. And we've seen throughout the year, maybe it's not your usual suspects who will step up. Sometimes it's an Isaiah Evans. Sometimes it's Sion, right? Or Sion. So I'm just, again, overall impressed with how Duke has got to this point. Of course, the mission is not complete because now you've got the Elite Eight and Alabama waiting. And yeah, I mean, I get it. I'm looking at the YouTube comments, man. Nothing. Officiating was absolute dog shit, painful, 40 plus whistles. Yeah, man. I'm not in disagreement with that. Daniel, we can all agree that the officiating was absolutely ridiculous. It was. It absolutely was. But the one thing you got to deal with is this stuff. And I know Duke fans are really focused on Lee Cassell. And I don't know, like some phantom tweet that he made. I don't know if it was real or not, but people are convinced that Cassell is just out to get Duke. And the fact that Duke, it's an old thing, man. I'm sure Adam Rowe could pull up this like fake tweet from back in the day. So all that stuff is out there, but you still got to overcome it. And one thing that Brent did bring up, and I saw this, I think this had more to do with the way the game was officiated more so than John Shire taking the air out of the ball. Because we did see this in the game against Carolina at the ACC tournament. Yeah. That is an old thing that I don't know if it's like he picked that up from Mike Krzyzewski or not, because Krzyzewski would do that a lot. But, Brent putting that on YouTube. Shire started taking the air out of the ball a little too early, hopefully learned his lesson. I thought they learned that lesson in the North Carolina game. Maybe not. While I do think there's an element of taking the air out of the ball, which I do not like, just go play. There's a couple of things that were going on tonight, officiating being one of them. Also, maybe there's a little bit of saving yourself because you understand what's going to happen on Saturday against Alabama. So there's all sorts of reasons why that might be the case, but I noticed that too, and I don't like it.
Season high, 93 points allowed by Duke. Obviously, the 51 in the second half is not something that John Shire's going to like in terms of the defensive effort. That has been their calling card. We've talked a lot about this year, how defense travels for Duke, but that's not why they won tonight. As someone who grew up about 15 miles from Newark, I would ask what is in the water in Newark, but I already know what's in the water in Newark. 113-88 was Alabama BYU, including 25 an NCAA tournament record, 25 3-pointers for Alabama, 100-93 Duke over Arizona. I suspect we're going to get a track meet on Saturday as well between the Crimson Tide and Duke. And man, Nate Oates now has a chance. Nate Oates now has a chance to get a Debbie Yao Wolfpack Unlimited award, because he knocked out Carolina last year, and now he's got a chance to knock out Duke in back-to-back years. If you're about that life, Nate Oates, then be about that life. What a fascinating game we will have on Saturday at the Rock.
There's a lot of lore, man. There's a lot of lore coming out of this game and going into the next game. So let's close a chapter. Let's end a chapter with some basketball lore.
Oh, would you look at that? John Calipari choked. Weird.
Oh,
so weird.
Is the game over?
So weird. That fucking guy.
That game went to
such
overtime,
a gag.
Right?
He's such a gag.
What's the final on that one? 85-83 to Texas Tech. All right. Remember, they were the Cinderella on this. Look, you know what?
I heard some of that, yes.
You know what? You can't tell. Now you got me sidetracked. You cannot tell John Calipari shit this year. You can't. Sorry. They got to the
No, you're right. No, you're right. And he won at Kentucky and he beat Pitino. That's fine.
If you go back to where Arkansas was earlier in the year, there was some talk of buyer's remorse while Kentucky was running hot and Arkansas looked like they might not even make the NCAA tournament, right? So they close strong, they get to the NCAA tournament. But yes, the fact that he went to Rupp and beat Kentucky and then handled business against Pitino and gets to the Sweet 16 with this Arkansas squad, yeah, man. I would say you can't tell John Calipari anything even after this overtime loss. So that's one bit of basketball lore. There's some basketball lore with Caleb Love that finally wraps up. I know we mentioned it earlier, but I had jotted this down, and I think there was somebody who had made a comment about this a little bit earlier on. Yes, from Michael. Love goes down like UNC basketball this year. I mean, incredible performance, and we've seen that look, Tar Heel for life, right? Tar Heel.
What are we doing? The guy scored 35 points. I mean, I don't know how much help he actually had in this game.
Well, no, the point being made here is that you can still have these incredible performances, incredible comebacks, whatever it is, and you still lose the game.
Gotcha.
So we've seen that out of Carolina this year. I mean, what happened against Ole Miss was very much what happened with Carolina all year long. So the fact that Caleb Love, I forgot what the stat was, but he surpassed R.J. Davis and Sears, I think, in terms of what points scored in the NCAA tournament over time, right? And it still happens, it still happens in a loss to Duke. So the Tar Heel for life, the Caleb Love Duke showdown stuff, that's over. The chapter ends in the rivalry. He'll always have the shot, obviously, in 2022. And now we get to Nate Oates, as you mentioned. There's a little Wolfpack for life action there, or I'm sorry, a little Wolfpack Unlimited there. Nate Oates, for whatever reason, my understanding was there was a relationship with Nate Oates and Mike Krzyzewski that Nate Oates decided to torch at a press conference, making little jokey jokes about Duke and Mike.
That was during the pandemic.
That was during the pandemic. During the pandemic. And man, it was a cheap pop and people loved it, right? So it's the old Rick Barnes, Dean Smith, like, oh man, that guy went after K. He's my guy. So here it is, right? And you and I were having dinner. And there was a Tar Heel guy that we were sitting with, and you looked up at the screen while the Alabama game was going. You're like, "There's your guy. There's your guy." So I don't know if Carolina fans are watching this one too, going, "Wonder if Nate Oates would be interested in this job in the long run." So there's a lot of basketball lore in this Elite Eight matchup with Alabama, man.
Yeah, those two games in Newark today. My gosh, I'm still shaking my head, Joe. We had some interesting games in Raleigh last week. Florida on the other side of the bracket, Duke obviously with Baylor, but Alabama's, in my opinion, has been the best offensive team all year. I don't know what the actual spit them out numbers say. Duke has obviously been the best defensive team all year, so this is a classic clash. Alabama is one of the teams that I had circled that could beat Duke for that reason, that they could potentially outscore Duke.
Mm-hmm.
But what we've seen from Alabama, particularly in the last month of the season, has been they don't defend well enough to win these types of games. So here we are.
From Russell, is Cooper Flagg officially now the bus driver for Duke, Joey Giggs?
Cooper Flagg had an all-time performance tonight, goes right up there. But now the steps become, they've become steeper. Mm-hmm. You got Alabama in this one, and then the final two will be the hardest two. And that's how you cement your legacy. That's how you put your mark in history. It's not by beating Stanford and Cal and Maine and the other bullshit games. It ain't even about losing the Kentucky and Kansas in the regular season. It's about these steps.
Yeah.
My son James, who did the previous post game with us, has a friend Rashad who came into my house last week and said Caleb Love is the most clutch player in NCAA tournament history. And I had to say to him, now Rashad's 20. And I said, now Rashad, that is
spoken like a 20-year-old.
Yeah. I said, Caleb Love absolutely hit one of the greatest and most important shots in NCAA tournament history. No doubt. I said, Christian Laettner had 4 buzzer beaters in the NCAA tournament in his career, won the title twice, went to the Final Four all 4 years.
Yeah.
That's a fucking legacy. Yeah, okay? Now, I get it. As you said, we're not getting Cooper Flagg for 4 years.
No,
I get that.
We're not.
But I saw our friend Mike DeCourcy coming around on the Syracuse analogy that I made, the 03 Syracuse analogy that I made about this Duke team. Can you do that? Because I do think those parts are more analogous than what Duke had done in 15. In my opinion, that's more of the comp than Duke in 2015. So these last few steps for Flagg are really important, but he keeps accepting the challenge. I love the way that Barkley and Kenny Smith talk about him and Clark Kellogg, because, as Sidney Lowe once told me, effort is a talent. You have to have a talent to make the NBA. Effort is actually one of those things. And I think you see it on the defensive end in particular. I mean, he's off the charts with his effort defensively. It's really impressive.
Couple things before we get out of here, because there's some other college basketball things that are going on that I think kind of tie into what we've seen at NC State and how people talked about Will Wade and the NC State coaching search, right? When Will Wade was asked about conversations with NC State, what did he do, Joe? We got the first tell, right? We got the first shimmy. We got the first little like, I talked to him. And a little bit of the basketball Illuminati that exists out there was upset that the fact that he just admitted, I talked to him.
Yeah.
And I
like where you're going here. I
talked to my players about that. Like we all know what's up, and it made sense because let's look at the calendar, boys. It's 2025. The portal opened up on Monday. You don't think, and we've seen this week with a couple of other things, including Tom Izzo, right? So Will Wade handles it in a very professional, matter of fact. It's 2025. We all understand the game has changed. The portal is open. NIL, there's cash deals, all this stuff. So let's just talk about it out in the open because, damn it, that's just what it is right now. And people got mad at him for that. And I thought to myself, I'm like, why are you being mad at a man for being honest and telling you straight up, the media, everybody's on the same page. My players are not surprised by any of this stuff. We are on the same page. Let's go out and win a basketball game. What did they do?
3 of them are probably coming to Raleigh.
Right. And they go out there and they slap around Clemson, right? I mean, that's pretty much what happened, because the whole idea was, oh man, I don't know, like, are his players going to check out on him? No, they weren't, because they knew what was up. Juxtapose that to earlier in the week, we get Tom Izzo going like, I don't know, just kind of performative about the whole transfer portal thing. He went like on a 10-minute rant about, I'm here for my guys and all this other stuff. Okay, cool. And then we get the worst version of it with Kevin Willard at Maryland, who, I mean, based on some of the reports, like he ghosted a team dinner ahead of the Sweet 16. Let's think about this. You're in the Sweet freaking 16, man. And you know how Maryland people are, the Crab Five, they're looking for basketball success. It's been a hot minute for Maryland, man. And this guy is talking to Villanova. And this is from the Baltimore Sun. University of Maryland administrators have told at least one prominent booster for the men's basketball program that Kevin Willard plans to leave for Villanova, but that Maryland is making a last-ditch effort to retain their coach, all while getting ready for the Sweet 16, which they lost tonight, right? Meanwhile, Maryland fans are booing Kevin Willard as they were sending him off to the Sweet 16. So you tell me who handled it better. You tell me what you want a coach to do. I'll take the Will Wade version of this in 2025 more so than this secretive back channel, having stuff reported, screen grabs of text messages, and wondering what the hell is going on in a crucial Sweet 16 game. I mean, am I off base here?
No, you actually combine both parts of and that Maryland combined both parts of NC State's season here in this sense. Willard's been basically whinging about the lack of NIL and support for Maryland basketball, and openly basically saying, I you want me to do this, but I need more money. Mm-hmm. And well, Villanova is over there going, well, yeah, well, come on over. We'll give you more money, right? And here we are, it's to your point, instead of him being honest about what was going on, he was honest about that there was some discord there. But he did not have those types of conversations. And, I think it'll show. What happens to him at Villanova will show. He was at Seton Hall, then he took the Maryland job. He's his dad is Ralph, a former coach, former Patino guy. I look at it, and same thing with the Colorado State coach, goes to Minnesota. There was another one, the Drake guy left like the next day. Like, all these things have been done for weeks, right? So yeah, I applaud Will Wade for the way that he handled it. And like I said, you'll probably see 2 or 3 of his McNeese guys be here in Raleigh with him because of those types of conversations.
Right. You don't believe me about the booing? You don't believe me how Maryland fans? You know how Maryland fans can get.
Oh God, Maryland fans I had to recoil at some of the things they were saying at NC State's first basketball game there after Debbie became the AD at State.
Oh my goodness. So this is the send-off. All right. Willard gets booed at his own send-off for the Sweet 16.
Man, I miss the Maryland song. Yeah, their fans aren't dumb. I mean, they're Turktown, man. They invented the John Shire face and the whole 500-page thread where they had Krzyzewski as Lee Harvey Oswald. I mean, come on, man.
Where's Scott? Was Scott Van Pelt the one booing there? I don't know, man. I don't know.
Brutal. I feel bad for Maryland too, because like they haven't been good in a hot minute, and he does have them playing well, and a lot of that is the players that you bring in. But yeah, I mean, I don't think he's handled it well.
No. Let's see. What do we got here? Let me go to the YouTube comments here real quick. I know my guy Ramar. Here we go. From Ramar, our resident Duke commenter. A valiant effort from the guy that cost Duke a chance at a championship a few years back, but Duke is able to survive despite Lee Cassell's best efforts. Again, the Lee Cassell thing, man. People are all in on that. Let's see what else we got. More ref stuff. Here we go. From Norman, raise Caleb's jersey in the CBS studio. They wanted it more than I think, look, man, the CBS people are here for one thing and one thing only: good television. And it was an interesting storyline. We talked about it. And look, man, Caleb Love absolutely balled out with 35 points. What more could you ask for? From Huthman, the hair turned gray during that game. Then I went bald in the last 10 minutes. Caleb Love will be in my nightmares. Refs were awful. I do wonder if some Duke fans were watching some of these shots from Caleb Love and wondering, damn it, is he going to freaking do it again? Now, I'll admit, when he bricked the first shot attempt coming out of halftime, that was another one of those like, nah, it's over. Like, I kept trying to call this game a lot earlier than I was like, it's over. And maybe I was doing it because I'm like, damn it, I want to go to bed, right? But no, that's not how it worked out.
Well, you were calling it because of what we've seen defensively from Duke all season.
Yes.
In fairness, Arizona wasn't cooperating on that front. No. But I thought important for Duke, just as the Baylor game, you have the blowout. Just as we saw in Charlotte, you have the games without Cooper Flagg. These types of games, as I like to tell you, the tournament is about who can make shots and who can score in the half-court set. So this was an important game for Duke to have too, in the sense that, okay, you need us to win this way now. Well, we can win this way. And, it's going to be interesting to see if the Big Ten, I don't want to say saves Duke, because I really don't think this is a bracket luck situation. But the way I see this playing out, I feel I've let our audience down.
Okay.
Because I've been so hyper-focused on the games in Raleigh. I've been so hyper-focused on NC State's coaching search. I've been so hyper-focused on Duke themselves and Carolina's plight, right? I did not realize the committee did Houston as dirty as they did them. That regional is in Indianapolis. I learned one very important thing last year as NC State had this celebration at the Final Four. They were only the second biggest fan base at the Final Four last year.
Mhm.
Purdue, who is the NC State of the Big Ten,
Yeah.
showed out. And so now you're Houston. You're the one. Kelvin Sampson, speaking of 03, was a 1 seed at Oklahoma, had to play in Albany against the 3 seed Syracuse. How'd you think that went? So here he is. He gets Purdue in a road game. And of the teams who looked the most impressive in the first 2 rounds, you'd be hard pressed to find one or two that looked better than Purdue did in the first 2 rounds of this tournament. And I can see Purdue coming out of this bracket playing Duke. I agree with the person before who had Florida coming out.
Yeah.
And my theory now is Sparty. I really thought at the beginning of this tournament we would get one of maybe even the dream old fogey bucket list matchup of Patino versus Izzo. Became pretty clear early in the Arkansas game it wasn't going to be Patino. I really do think Izzo's going to show up in the national championship game on the other side of Duke. I really, really do. So we'll see how this thing all plays out, all told. But I apologize for not picking up earlier on that Purdue Indianapolis thing, because I could absolutely see Purdue coming out of that home game. And I, honestly, I hate it for Houston because they had a hell of a team, man. They got a hell of a team.
From the method on the YouTube comments, Bama's too small at the guard position. Arizona matched up well, but Bama isn't going to be putting up 52 threes against
Well,
Duke.
they might put up 52 threes. They're not going to hit 25.
They're not going to hit that many of them.
That's what you mean to say. But apparently the baskets at the Rock are the fountain of like honey and gold, because
apparently
water.
Again, we saw a bunch of look, between Duke and Arizona, we saw a bunch of threes too. So let's see. From William, think Flagg is better than Joey Giggs is saying. Look, man. I mean, you said what you needed to say about Cooper Flagg, and I'm going to jump in here on this. I think people are misconstruing the conversation around Flagg. If he is this guy, well, then there's, as you said, the legacy that has to come with it. All right. This is kind of odd coming from Duke people, of all places, where they have their own standard and they have their own legends and they have their own guys who have their stuff up in the rafters. So I find it kind of weird. Nobody's dismissing Cooper Flagg and whether or not he's good. I mean, you had referenced this earlier as something that I had jotted down because I wanted to get back to it. And that the one thing that Cooper Flagg has brought to the table that the 2 previous iterations of John Shire's Duke teams did not have was, to borrow what the kids say, that dog in him. There's you want to call it motor, you want to call it a will to compete, there's all sorts of ways you can throw it out there. But I think everybody recognizes that dude wants to freaking play. And I know there was a feature with the Flagg family, and it was asking about the NBA and all this other kind of stuff. But, they gave the typical answers about, no, the NBA can wait. We're here and we want to win a freaking championship because they understand what it's about. You could say that's just your cliche stuff to say because it's the right thing to say. But when it comes to the Flaggs, I believe it. They want to freaking win. And it's evident in the way that they're playing. So, again, it's not like saying, oh, he's not all that. He clearly is elite.
No, I think this person might have been following all year, and I have questions about Cooper Flagg. I think when people were after dark, 1 a.m., quite frankly, people were sucking his dick because he was 17 years old. Every comment was, "Oh, he's 17," and the Anthony Davis blocked shot from practice, for God's sake. And then he's shown a development though. When I said in the preseason, people got upset about the Josh McRoberts thing. My point about Josh McRoberts was better than you remember.
That's
now,
big.
In terms of an all-around player.
Yeah.
Now, when someone midway through the year was like, you can bring up the numbers, but the style of play is different. And I agree with that. I never thought they were I never thought they were the same player stylistically. I thought Cooper has an all-around game. He's like, and I said he would be a better version of Josh Norris. He has. Now he's on track. You know what drove me crazy? I can't even think of the guy's name. I'd have to go back and look. Duke's had so many one-hit wonders. They were force feeding us a Christian Leitner comparison to Matt something.
Yeah.
And somebody help me here with before I have to go find this. They were force feeding us comparisons in the last few years, and I think in terms of a competitor, and maybe some. I know.
Laughing at that comment.
I know. In terms of a competitor,
it's after dark.
Yeah, I said it. I warned you. Hurt. Thank you. In terms of a competitor, that's the level that Matthew Hurt. Yeah. It drove me crazy because, oh my God, he's just like Christian Leitner. No. Christian, this kid has that type of, you say dog competitor. This kid has those Bobby Hurley, Christian Leitner competitive qualities. You know, you're looking at him going, Grant Hill, like, I'll cut your throat out. I'll cut my mom's throat out to beat you. That's how this kid plays. And that's impressive.
All right. I think that's going to wrap it up. You got anything else? We'll do a mailbag tomorrow.
Here's the mail. It never fails.
Yeah.
Makes me want to wag my tail.
By the way, I know last on Sunday when you're doing the after dark or the afternoon with
that was early. That was a breeze.
When you're doing it with James, you had made reference to the fact that we can't take any phone calls because the OG sports phone is tied to my I have a Google account that has the voicemail to it, right? But I told you, I'm like, nobody calls when Duke wins.
When
Duke wins, not a soul calls. Now, shout out to the Duke fans that are in the chat. Hey, man, salute to you.
That's why we're here.
That's why we're here. We're about it. Like I said.
I appreciate them following the narrative from the whole season because this is how we've talked about them all year. But we're in the end game now, man. Like, you got to tip your hat to what they've done. And like I said, it ain't easy to start a season and think, hey, this is what we're going to be. And now here you are, and you're that. That's fucking impressive.
But my point is what's funny about Duke is, for whatever reason, it doesn't elevate to somebody wanting to call in. I don't know what it is about Duke. Chat's there, man. It's all good. We'll get some emails. I'll get some social media stuff. But I guess Duke fans don't want to curse or not curse or call. I don't know. Maybe it's the youths. Maybe Duke fans are just younger. They don't feel like calling. They just want to text, right? I always wonder how the generation coming up is ever going to date, because you actually have to interact with somebody in person rather than I'll just snap you. I don't know. How about you interact in person? I don't know. So anyway, I'm just being silly. But I once again, I got one notification about a voicemail. And it just reads,
is it because we told our guy to go away?
Which guy? Oh, no, because he only wants to be mad. And we're sitting here praising Duke. So it is what it is. So, all right, one last thing. Is Duke America's team when they play Alabama to non-rival fans? It's just the first time in decades they might have a shred of neutral support. Clemson Volt, I have been saying this.
Yeah, for a while. Different, man. It's been different.
I have been saying this for at least the last 2 years. And I said this when Mike Krzyzewski was retiring, and we started getting into this next chapter of the Duke Carolina rivalry. So much of the heat was tied to one individual, Mike Krzyzewski. It wasn't about Duke. It was about Mike. It was about Coach K. And when we did the basketball Jones with Bomani Jones, and they aired the HBO feature that he had done for his show Game Theory, a lot of people had not seen it before. They had not seen it in an audience setting, right? And the whole premise of that was about how it was Mike Krzyzewski under Duke, or Duke under Mike Krzyzewski, that stuck it to all your favorite teams, right? Including Kentucky with Christian Laettner and all that stuff. Shire does not bring that out. I mean, I remember we got into a disagreement with Matt Norlander of CBS Sports about, like, what are you talking about? Look what Maryland fans, like, that was just Maryland fans being trolls, and it's a meme, and they're just making fun of the face and all that stuff. It's not the same thing with Mike Krzyzewski. And if I think this season alone has crystallized it, the jokes were there because they were playing in New Jersey and it was a pro-Duke crowd, but it was a pro-Duke crowd in Raleigh for the first 2 games, to the point where Grant Hill even said it's odd because Grant Hill knows what it's like to be Duke in the state of North Carolina during this time of the year. It was odd to hear a pro-Duke crowd in Charlotte for a game against Carolina. That is a Carolina town. You want to say it was Carolina fan apathy because they kind of checked out on the season and they didn't want to hurt. They didn't want to feel the hurt. Okay, fine. I'm willing to hear that. But people still show out to hate on Duke, even in those settings. But not this Duke team, not under John Shire. And I've been trying to tell people, I've been trying to get everybody on the program. You cannot talk about Duke or expect the same kind of things you got out of Duke the last 40 years under John Shire. This is a team that people actually like. It's a coach that people like. And there isn't 40 years of sticking it to your team to make you mad at John Shire. And I know deep down, it bothers people. They're like, damn it, do I actually like these people? And the answer is yes. Yes, you do. Unless you're a Carolina fan, obviously, because that's just the way.
I got either a radio tease for you or a quick radio bit for you. What would you like?
You want to tease it?
Which part would you like?
You want to tease it for the mailbag later on this morning in about when we record in about 9 hours, 10 hours?
Yeah, that's fine, because here I was thinking we wouldn't record before the next Duke game. Is Duke's season a success whether they win or lose on Saturday?
It will. If they lose on Saturday, it is not a successful season. Hard stop.
Man.
Hard stop.
I have a hard time with that, but
you can't.
We will get caught up in it. We will get caught up in it.
Joe, we just spent 40 fucking minutes talking about what this season was about, and Shire understanding what this season's about, and building a roster around a guy you're going to get for 1 year. And if you don't get past the Elite Eight, I'm sorry, it's not a success. You got to get to the Final Four, straight up. I said it before the tournament even started. It's Final Four or bust for this Duke team. Not with this guy, not with the moves you made, not with the hard conversations you had to have with guys like Jeremy Roach. Okay?
Yeah.
You knew what this year was about. And if you don't get to the Final Four, as much as you've improved as the season has gone on, then it's not a success. Final Four or bust. Once you get to the Final Four, hey man, these teams are fucking good and anything can happen.
Oh yeah.
But up until this point,
I see your differentiation there. I'm just saying, in terms of when you kind of sort of look at it, because we'll get caught up in whatever the result is. That's all. Because I was trying to have a clear-headed. No, what I meant was if Alabama makes 25 threes, if Alabama makes 25 threes on Saturday, you know what I mean?
Well, I mean, let's see. Okay.
That way. If you lose that way.
No, if they make 25, if they make 25 threes, that would be a disaster for Duke, given
because you didn't play defense. Okay.
They play defense.
Okay.
So if they shoot 25 threes, that's not because, oh man, you just got lucky. That just means there was an absolute breakdown defensively for Duke for them to make 25 threes. So
here, Duke fans, I'm gonna make you feel better about something. Ready? This is how I'll leave you.
Okay.
I know you're ready for bed.
Mm-hmm.
I am the king of almosts. While
you're looking that up, I also wanted to wait. One thing is I've seen some of this stuff in the chat. Last year, the first 2 years of Shire were pure successes. Okay. They won the ACC championship in year 1. They got knocked out by a bully Tennessee team. They tried to learn from that. They follow it up with a not as good regular season, but still managed to get to an Elite Eight where they lose to NC State, who obviously, as we know, had an all-time heater run. okay, with DJ Burns and everything else. It ended up being a pretty good matchup for NC State in that regard. That's not what this year is about. You could say the Elite Eight all in the context of the year and what we come to find out about Kyle Filipowski getting the Elite Eight and losing to that state team. Not a bad thing. Really not a bad thing. But that's not what this year's about, man.
I'm the king of the almosts. I would make $2,435 if Alabama wins on Saturday. So I can promise you Alabama's not winning on Saturday. And you're welcome.
There you go. All right, that's gonna wrap it up. Shout out to everybody who's on the After Dark. Shout out to all of our corporate champions. It's time, Joe, for the billboard.
End credits.
Tonight's After Dark is brought to you by Butcher's Market. Why the Butcher? Hold on a second. I actually have to change the media assets here because we're in the After Dark mode. Let's change this out. Let me get the billboards here real quick because we got to shout out the Butcher's Market. This was technically your Butcher's Market live today, since we thought, hey, man, if we're going to talk about Duke, let's just wait and not do a normal 2 o'clock. So big thanks to the Butcher's Market. They also bring you the OG mailbag as well. So check out thebutchersmarkets.com. Also brought to you by Miller Lending. MillerLending.com/the OG. Get a Raleigh Wine Shop gift basket when you start the process on refinancing. No closing costs, so you are going to stay winning the entire time. All of our ACC coverage is brought to you by our friends at Keller Williams Commercial. Check them out online, trianglenccommercial.com. The Donnelly team, Brian and Julie, they can help you out with your commercial real estate space. Joe is pretty much head to toe in Rowback all the time. He's got Rowback tops. He's got Rowback pants. Do they make Rowback underwear, Joe?
I'll work on it.
Work on that. See if Ben's got some Rowback underwear. I would wear underwear with AV carts on it. Not going to lie. Not going to lie. Go to rowback.com. Use that promo code OG20 to save 20% off your order. Big thanks to Happy and Hale. I'm going to need a pick-me-up tomorrow because I'm going to be dragging. You know what's going to come in handy? That Almond Brothers. That's got all the protein you need. So check them out, Happy and Hale. Download the app. Use that promo code OG25 to save 25% off one of your orders. 1-800-Plumber and Air. It is getting warm out. I know it's got the hot. It's the cold. It's the cold in the morning, warm in the day, back to cold. That's going to tax your HVAC. Get it tuned up with our friends at 1-800-Plumber and Air. 1-800-Plumber.com. Duke fans, have you seen the sick outfits they've got at home field? Have you seen the box with that hoodie and the throwback heavyweight tees? Go to homefieldapparel.com. Use that promo code OG24 if you haven't yet. You'll save 15% off your order. Again, spring, water, mosquitoes, bad combination. That's why you got to get with Mosquito Authority and Pest Authority. Check them out online, bugsbite.com, and start getting your mosquito treatments ready for the summer. Whitaker and Hamer. Joe won. I lost. May 1st at Shady's is the OG birthday bash 2. Because I forgot I have a rehearsal dinner to go to on May 9th. Kelly reminded me, no, we have a wedding to go to. Oh, yeah. My bad. So May 1st, we'll have fun. We'll have prizes. It'll be a good time. May 1st, Shady's. Big thanks to State Farm, Matt Davis. Check him out online at SureGarner.com, 919-779-8277. Hometown Realty. Like, you got your house, save, right, with the insurance, but maybe you're thinking, it's time for something new. Look at all this new construction. They know the incentives, they know the builders, and they can help you out. Check them out, myhtr.com. Breeze through. Hey, man, maybe the coffee won't be enough. Maybe the Almond Brothers won't be enough. Maybe I'm going to need to power through the mailbag tomorrow with some Celsius and Zins. They got deals going on right now. Buy one, get ones at Breeze Through. What? Just burn it on both ends, baby. Let's go.
When you promote the sins. They're good for you in any possible way.
Who said anything about it being good for you? I'm just saying you get a deal.
Power through.
You know what else isn't good for you? Eating the entire pint of ice cream. But we do it anyway. So check out tworoosters.com. It's getting close to being ice cream weather, but when it's Two Roosters, the flavors are so good it doesn't matter. You're eating ice cream 365 days out of the year. And of course, you can check them out at NCFC and Courage games, and obviously Canes games with the Slave and Sunday. was. Oh wait, no. Today was today is the day because it is the 28th. You actually get to see Slavin at a Two Roosters, so that's going to be good. And of course,
Nice.
Longleaf Swine. We thank them. Check them out, longleafswine.com. I'll probably be there on Friday night. I think that covers all the bases with all of our corporate champions, if I'm not mistaken.
Somebody wanted the Inovana jingle. Throw him a bone.
Oh yeah. Hold on a second, since I'm in the right studio thing. Here we go.
Ben, sorry, Ben.
Get it clean with Inovana.
They're at the house as we speak.
Finally, they're at my house right now.
Right.
Right now, cleaning my bath at 1:20 in the morning. So when Duke wins on Saturday, let's get Joey Giggs singing the Little Owl song.
Little drunken owl.
Save it. All right, that's gonna wrap it up. We'll see you later.